Welcome to the Husband's Coach's Corner, the podcast that teaches husbands how to love their wife every day and become better men in the process. I'm your host, Chris Scott, aka the Husband Coach. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another episode right here on the Husband Coach's Corner. Today is a very special episode. We're going to be recapping the season as we close out season 1 and getting prepared for season number 2. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive into the recap. On June 10th, 2020, we started out the season with the very first episode dealing with conflict. That has been one of the most popular episodes on the podcast, and I think it was very, very value added to a lot of men out there that were struggling with how do I interact with my wife if we have a conflict and when we have a conflict, when I'm angry, things of that sort. So, let me know if that's something you guys were interested in, if it was actually value added. All right. Then we went into episode number 2, and this was all about investing into your wife. And I cannot stress enough how important that really is. If you have not listened to that episode, please go back and check that one out. That is an episode that will transform your marriage in a way that you would not even imagine possible. I really believe that is probably the number one episode that I would recommend to anyone. So please go check that one out. With that being said, I'm going to leave all of these episodes in the show notes for you to reference. Be sure to check that out. All right. The show notes. While you're down there, don't forget to sign up for my email list. And when you do, you're going to get a free copy of the Wife Journal. All right. It's just going to come to your email completely free. So go ahead and sign up for that. That way you can get a copy of the Wife Journal. Now, in episode number 9, I answered the question, should you affirm your wife? The answer to that is absolutely yes, but I go into a more detailed and a deeper explanation on why you should affirm your wife. In episode number 11, was when, we got a little bit deep and talked about empathy. Now, as men, we don't talk too much about empathy. Most men, we probably are like, empathy, what's that? I'll never touch that. But the truth is, we should be way more empathetic towards our wives, and I'll talk about that in that episode. If you don't know the definition of empathy or anything like that, then just go check out that episode. I promise you it will be value added. You can check that out right after you listen to episode number 2 about investing in your wife. Now, one of my favorite episodes to actually put together outside of investing in your wife was episode number 12. This is how to develop trust in your marriage. This is a very, very important topic to discuss. Okay. One of my favorite episodes that I recorded was episode number 12. This is how to develop trust in your marriage. There are so many people that struggle with trust in the marriage, and it's important to learn how to develop that because it doesn't just happen by accident. You actually got to put in some work. So episode number 12 talks all about how to develop trust in your marriage, and trust me, no pun intended, you need it. All right. Episode number 18 was about the 4 listening styles. Now, this one is a little bit more technical, but it's also very informative because if you're not aware of your own listening style, it's going to be hard for you to figure out what your wife's listening style is. And when we talk communication, which is one of the biggest problems that people have in marriage today, is communicating, then understanding your listening style, understanding her listening style is truly going to benefit you. And you guys have nothing but to gain from understanding that. So episode 18, make sure you check that out, listening styles. Now, The next group of episodes following that were 19 through 24, and we covered the 4 love languages. Now, if you're not familiar with the 4 love languages, I highly recommend you get familiar with them, because those, the 4 love languages, 5 love languages. I don't know why I said 4. You want to make sure that you get familiar with the 5 love languages. The reason being is when you understand how to use all 5 of those, because your wife does have all 5 of those. You have all 5 of those. And they do change from time to time on which one you prefer to display or the one that you prefer to receive. When you learn what your wife's love language is and what yours is, your life gets a lot easier. Trust me on this, guys. Your life gets a lot easier when you learn love languages. So make sure you check out episodes 19 through 24 if that is something you are struggling with or even a least bit curious about. Now, in episodes 25 and 28, we get real and got down to the heart of what you want in your marriage. We discussed the why and committing to the process of becoming a loving husband. If you're not committed to a process, you're not going to see it through to the end, which means you're not going to get the end goal that you're looking for. But throughout the process, if you don't know why you're trying to get this, then it's easy to get wrapped up in the what, and you can fall off the bandwagon, and you really have no drive or purpose for what it is that you're doing. So for all the husbands on this podcast that, listen in, I truly believe that you guys know your why. And if you don't know your why, then now is the time for you to figure out your why and go back and listen to some of these episodes and see if there's a way that, it can spark your why you are going on this journey. Why did you get married in the first place? In fact, in the very last episode that I did, there's like this movement of not getting married. And if you don't know the reason why you got married, then that could be the very first place that you start, right? Did you get married for companionship? Did you get married for financial reasons? There's a lot of reasons why people get married. I'll tell you my why. I got married because my wife, Crystal, that's her name, she was the first woman that I've ever encountered, and mind you, this was in high school, that genuinely brought me comfort, brought me peace, showed me a level of respect that no other girlfriend that I was courting throughout high school, there was just so much about her that I said, you know what, I can't let her get away. And I had no idea what marriage was at the time, mind you, but I knew that when you get married, there's a level of commitment, and I wanted to have that higher level of commitment. Now, that was my why then. My why for enhancing as a husband now has really transformed more along the lines of because my Lord and Savior has said that I should love my wife as Christ loved the church, and I should be prepared to lay my life down for her. And that's a very literal context, very literal context, but there's also a very symbolic context. I should be willing to give up everything that I have and everything that I'm doing in order to honor my wife and to love her. Right? That's what I should be prepared to do. And that is something that we'll explore a lot deeper in season 2. Now, episode number 34 is when we looked at the impacts of social media on your marriage. If you do not know how social media is impacting your marriage, man, you got to check out that episode and listen in. Look, social media is here, and depending on what, age group you're in or generation you're in, social media could be a staple in your life. It could be a hurdle in your life. It could just be an annoyance overall, right? Social media, it definitely impacts the marriage sometimes in a positive way and most of the time in a negative way, especially when you got ex-girlfriends reaching out to you, talking about you look good. And then you got you got trust issues, and social media can really, really impact your marriage. So check out episode number 34 to get some ways on how you as a husband can still use social media, because I'm not shaming anyone who uses social media. And in fact, I don't shame anyone on this podcast except for those who are deliberately looking for ways to hurt their wife, or indiscriminately looking for ways to go out and date other women and step outside of the marriage. I don't condone that. So, there you have it. If you were wondering if I believed in polygamy or monogamous marriages, obviously I believe in monogamous. All right. So then, rounding it all out, we had episode number 38. And this is the one that I kind of alluded to earlier, where there's this movement of people that don't want to get married. They just want to kind of shack up or have these long-term committed relationships. But, I have to argue, how committed are they if they're not willing to actually get married? And again, in that episode, I identified it. This is not, when I talk about marriage, I'm talking about a man and a woman joined under God. All right. If you don't know, I am a Christian, and I am a firm believer that marriage was created by God for a man and a woman to enter into. Now, if you don't share my belief on that, that's okay. We can absolutely talk offline, or talk via email, whatever. Send me messages. I don't mind. I really would like to talk to you about that. But this particular article was really targeting marriage as like this failed institution. It's only because people were looking at marriage outside of the context of what marriage was actually designed to be, right? Because when we look at marriage in the eyes of God and the way that He intended the marriage to be, then it becomes this beautiful, harmonious thing. And this is the reason why, we have the phrase here, learn to love your wife every day. All right. Or find ways to love your wife every day. Whichever one you've heard me say, they both mean the exact same thing. And the truth is that is a biblical, right? The Christian Bible philosophy and teaching and concept. So this is something that is intertwined into the podcast that I teach here. Now, season 1, like I said, it is wrapping up, but I want to leave you guys with some parting thoughts. And the first one is, I had a lot of great topics covered during the season, and I didn't even mention everything in the recap that I just went over. But please go and check out the library. There are a ton of resources available for you, and these are meant to be re-listened to. Specifically because the first time you hear it, you may focus on, you're going to be in a different season of life, right? It's very value added to go back and listen to them after you've tried the drills that I've offered up in earlier episodes. And then you go back and you're like, okay, I tried the drill. Here's what happened. And then you try it again and again. All right. That's one of my other closing thoughts is, revisit drills often because they're a great way to improve your relationship, and they genuinely bring awareness to many challenges that you may not even be aware of. All right. You definitely want to revisit drills just for the sake of building up your marriage and being aware of the issues that you may be facing. The next thing that I want to kind of leave you guys with is marriage is not a sprint. All right. I don't think you guys think this, and becoming a better husband, you're not going to do this necessarily overnight. You may improve in areas very quickly, but you're not going to improve overnight. And I don't want you to treat this podcast episodes or whatever as a one-time thing. I did this, look at me, I was able to, build my marriage. No, this is about the long term. This is about building trust and confidence in your marriage. That's the purpose of these episodes and all of these drills, which is why I'm highly recommending that you go back and revisit those drills and do them over and over again. Think of it like in basketball. There's a drill called the weave. I remember my coach had us run this drill every single practice. And I don't know why, and it didn't really matter, but it became one of those things that I ran the drill with my teammates, and we got into this harmonious groove, and that only came because we constantly were doing this drill. So maybe that's the purpose for doing the drills, just so you can get into a constant groove, all right? Being consistent is extremely, extremely important when it comes to building your marriage. Now, don't be afraid of making any mistakes while you're working to improve your marriage. Now, hear me clearly on this. I'm not saying that you should be doing anything that breaks down trust in your marriage or defies the monogamous philosophy, the monogamy between the two of you, right? This is me saying you should not be afraid of forgetting to do something that you heard on a podcast or that your wife asked you to do, or even if you fail at doing some of these things, right? Don't be afraid of that, because if you're not deliberately trying to hurt your wife and instead you're trying to build yourself up and it just doesn't work out that well for you initially, then try again, right? This is, again, a lifelong thing. You definitely have plenty of time to improve and get better. I don't get it right 100% of the time. In fact, I would even say I get it right about 70% of the time. The other 30% is me, I would say 15% of that is, or half of that 30 is me wondering if I got it right. And the other 15 is me definitely not getting it right. Because I'm human, right? I miss date nights from time to time. It's not intentional. Sometimes it's me not doing a good job at balancing my calendar. Sometimes it's me just not doing a good job at planning out the date night. And the date night is an utter mess because we try to do it and it is evident that I did not do a good job at planning it out. So don't be afraid to fail, all right? I don't want you guys to think that you absolutely must get this right. Otherwise, it is over and your wife is going to leave you or anything crazy like that. That's not how this works. So please let off on, some of the stress and just find ways to love your wife every day. That's genuinely all it really comes down to. Find a way to love your wife every single day. Now, the last one that I want to leave you with is extremely, extremely important. If you don't do this, like if you don't do anything else that I talked about in this episode, that's okay. I think you'll be fine. But this thing is probably the most important. All right. So really lean in on this. I want you to find a mentor that truly wants to see your marriage succeed. If your marriage is in a place where it's very rocky and going home could potentially start an argument just because your communication is so distraught, you should definitely have someone that you can confide in and you can have some very sensitive conversations with, and you feel confident that this person is going to mentor you in a way that will build you up. Now, I highly recommend that this mentor is a married person, all right, to a woman, right? A man that is married to a woman and has had a successful marriage, or at least is a little bit further along in marriage than you are. All right. The reason that you want this is a good mentor has to have already experienced most of what you are looking for the mentorship on. All right. If they haven't experienced it, then it's really just a really high level guess. All right. And there's nothing wrong with that, with the exception that a person who has experienced it is going to be able to speak a lot more intelligible, and they're also going to be able to give you better responses to those circumstances. All right, so that's you need a mentor. All right, and this has to be someone who genuinely cares about your marriage and wants to see you and your wife succeed. So season 2 is going to be kicking off on July 2nd. Between now and then, I'm going to be refreshing on some of my marriage knowledge and psychology to bring new ways of loving your wife to the podcast. I'm also going to be revisiting some of those older topics, some of which I covered in this particular episode. But I'm going to refresh those in a way that, gives you a new idea and really just revamping drills that go along with each of those things. Now, if you have a question that you would like me to answer either on a podcast or just over an email, or if you want to get on a Skype call or Zoom or whatever is cool now, you can reach me at the email address in the show notes, husbandcoach2020@gmail.com. And I do check that email on a regular basis, so you can rest assured that you will get a response. I may be a little delayed, but you will get a response. And when I come back for season 2 on July 2nd, we're really gonna hone in on some things that refines the way that we as husbands should really be engaging and loving our wives. So, until the next lesson and in season 2, I want you to find a way to love your wife every day. Peace.